Hello there everybody, how is it going and how have you been? I am EuclideanSqd, and we're back here in Duel Links to check out a truly brand new type of event, the Flames of Vengeance. I'm gonna mispronounce this name, Ccapac. Basically this is a new type of event that it's basically a raid. In fact, it's even called a raid duel. But the general idea is that Earthbound Immortal Ccapac slash Kalin is your opponent. They start with a massive amount of life points, but any damage you do carries over after the end of the duel. And you just keep doing it over and over until it dies. Other people can come and help you with the duel. You can go and help other people with their raids against their personal Earthbound Immortal. And every time it dies, everybody that participated in defeating it gets treasure and points and stuff. So it's really cool. It's a nice new style of event. And one thing that I want to talk about really quick right off the bat is that I know that this event has been going on for several days, but I waited this long because it took this long for them to let you unlock Kalin, which is kind of weird, because typically in a character unlock event, the character is available right from the start as opposed to halfway through, like with this one. But considering I like going over new characters, like level up sets, skills, all that stuff, I wanted to wait until he was available, and that just required me to wait until now. But, yeah, so I've gotten Kalin unlocked. In fact, I already satisfied the requirements for unlocking him by the time he was available. So we will be checking him out towards the end of the video. But first, just because this is a new type of event, I would like to go over how it works. So it functions kind of similarly and kind of differently from other sort of token unlock events, where you earn these tokens just by playing the game, and then you spend them to duel against a special character. It's similar in that it functions exactly that way. You get tokens to spend against the special character, but it's different in that, whereas with other characters like, say, Hasselberry and, Merrick and Jack, who would show up at the gate, and you can choose their difficulty level, the Earthbound Immortal picks its own difficulty level whenever it spawns, and it's always a flat 40 token fee, or I guess vestiges, since they're called Dark Signer vestiges, 40 vestige fee to duel it whenever you want to. With the exception that when it first respawns, you do get one duel against it for free. It's if you want to keep dueling it to keep doing damage, that it costs you these vestiges. But kind of interesting. I guess that kind of plays into the whole raid aspect, where it's just a super powerful boss that you don't really have any control over. And it's interesting. It's kind of a nice change up from how these sort of token unlock event sort of things would typically work. Yep. That's basically how you start a duel with the Earthbound Immortal, and there are actually some special rules to go along with the raid duels. The most prominent of which is that after 5 of your turns elapse, the duel ends. Doesn't matter how many life points you have, doesn't matter how much damage you've done, after 5 of your turns, like at the end of your 5th turn, duel's over. So the idea is that you want to do as much damage as you possibly can to the Earthbound Immortal in that amount of time. And this also kind of ties into the whole your first duel is free, because once your first duel with it is over, other players can come and duel against that Earthbound Immortal who has however much life points remaining as well, and their damage will carry over. If you duel it again, your damage will carry over at just the same. So that's kind of how they just keep people from just killing it in a single duel, is that you only get 5 turns to do as much damage as you can, and at that point you can kind of decide whether you want to sit back and let other people finish it off, or if you want to take another swing. Yeah, that is interesting. I do have one major gripe with that special rule for these duels. I will get into that when we actually do have a duel against the Earthbound Immortal. But otherwise, the duels generally go exactly as any other typical duel. The Earthbound Immortal slash Kalin does have other skills, or does have some other skills that they can activate. I've only ever seen them use one of these other skills. And even then, I don't know what the activation requirements are. I think I've only seen it like twice, and I've beaten this thing at least 30 times, and I've probably fought it more. But basically, it's that second skill that you can see in the box right there, Dark Synchro Preparations. And all that basically does is give him a tuner and a synchro material that he can use to create 100 Eyes Dragon. In case you were wondering, that is a 3000 attack point synchro monster. So if you see that skill activate, be prepared to have something big and scary to deal with pretty darn quickly. But again, I don't know what triggers it, and it seems to be relatively rare regardless. The main skill you are going to be dealing with is Flames of Vengeance, which that text is incorrect. The duel does not end on your 5th draw phase. It is when your 5th turn ends. And then this last skill, Offering to the Immortals, I've never seen him use it ever. So I don't know if that's being saved for a super hard, like, even harder difficulty that unlocks towards the end of the event, or if that's just leftover text from something that they couldn't get working and they just forgot to remove the text, or what. But I've never seen them use Offering to the Immortals. Then lastly, for the special rules, at least as far as I can remember, there are forbidden skills and forbidden cards that you are not allowed to use in these raid duels. So specifically, you are not allowed to use the Grandpa's cards, Fatal 5, Titan Showdown, a Card Entrusted, or Destiny Board skills. These are all generally skills that I believe would just trigger a sort of instant win condition, which kind of goes against the whole purpose of the raid duels, so you're just not allowed to use them, or they would be deactivated or something. And additionally, some of these cards are just simply too powerful / too game breaky for the purposes of a raid duel, so you're not allowed to bring in Gandora, the Dragon of Destruction, Destiny Hero Dogma. Oh yeah, this one actually makes sense because this thing can have your opponent's life points. That again kind of breaks the rules of the raid duel. Parshoth, and I don't really know why Parshoth is banned. Because, I mean, the Earthbound Immortal, like, even at its lowest difficulty, it starts with over 10,000 life points, so you're never going to have to worry about the whole, you gain the whole attack and defense switch, but, anyway, yeah, it just seems to be that sort of really easy to activate, like, effect damage or massive life point damage sort of things. It seems like all of those are sort of just blocked off because it would just make it too easy for you to kill the Earthbound Immortal, and they want there to be at least a little bit of a challenge and this whole little participation aspect. So if you see any of these cards on this list, you're not allowed to use them. And finally, I kind of forgot about this other special rule, is that all synchro monsters do double their normal battle damage to the Earthbound Immortal during the duel. However, the Signer Dragons actually do triple battle damage, with the Signer Dragons being Stardust, Red Dragon, Blackwinged, Black Rose, and Ancient Fairy Dragon. So, if you have any of these 5 cards, these can be a really good way to do a lot of damage at once. Red Dragon Archfiend in particular, just because if that thing gets off a direct attack, that is 9,000 damage to the Earthbound Immortal base, assuming you haven't like given him any equip spells or anything to make it even stronger. So if you have any of these cards, building a deck around synchro summoning these things as fast as possible, it could be pretty good. That's not what the deck that I'm using does, but that is an option. And that does bring me to something kind of weird about this event, is that normally when I show off a farming deck, I like to make it as budget friendly as possible for people who can't sink money into the game, haven't been playing for as long as I have, and would otherwise just have a harder time getting their hands on rarer cards. That is not what I have done with this deck. This deck is based off of one that I saw on Duel Links meta. There is a link to that page down in the description as usual. But you will notice there is a good supply of super rares and ultra rares in this deck, and that is specifically influenced by the fact that the duel ends in 5 turns. Normally when you have a farming deck, you are able to sort of stall out the duel, draw out your cards, get your duel assessment as high as possible, but because that's not the way that this event works, and you only have 5 turns to just wail on this thing as much as you possibly can, you're going to want to bring your rarest, most powerful cards along with, so I've kind of constructed this deck to emulate that. Now, admittedly, I didn't have nearly the same cards that the deck on Duel Links meta had, so I just kind of had to cobble stuff together to make do. This deck really doesn't look like the one over there. But the basic idea is that this deck is designed to synchro summon Power Tool Dragon very quickly. Now you're probably wondering why Power Tool Dragon, because he doesn't do triple battle damage. Well, for one, it is a synchro monster, so it still does double battle damage regardless. But two, it's specifically his effect to reveal 3 equipped spell cards from your deck, let your opponent randomly pick one and add it to your hand. The idea is to just give him a bunch of really good equip spells and just kind of get around any sort of stally tactics that Kalin might try and do to block you doing battle damage. I believe in the original recipe it called for stuff like Double Tool CD, which would give Power Tool Dragon an extra 1,000 attack points. This normal equip spell, Power of the Guardians, which every time the equipped monster attacks, it basically gains 500 attack and defense. I have done that. There were... I can't remember what some of the other spells were, but I did take them out just for other stuff. Specifically, I swapped some out for Fairy Meteor Crush, because the equipped monster gets to do piercing battle damage, and this is very good because basically once you get Power Tool on the field, Kalin is more than likely going to start putting all of his stuff in defense mode, so having Fairy Meteor Crush will let you still damage him. Plus, quite a few of Kalin's monsters actually have 0 defense points, so if he does stupidly play one of those things in defense mode, it's basically like a direct attack regardless. It's actually very nice. Now you can do Power Tool C and D if you want to. I believe that is a super rare. I'm not going to go check, but for a while I had swapped that out for Mage Power, which gives the equipped monster 500 attack and defense for every spell and trap card you control. So basically with a full suite of 3 equipped spells on Power Tool, that's an extra 1500 attack points. But what I want to experiment with is this thing actually called Air Cracking Storm. This is an equipped spell that you can only put on machine type monsters, like Power Tool, and when the attacking monster destroys an opponent's monster in battle, it can make a second attack during the battle phase, but your other monsters cannot attack. I kind of like this, or I kind of like the idea of this, of letting Power Tool, who will have like 3,000, possibly over 4,000 attack points, doing 2 attacks at once. And plus with the whole strategy of this deck, once you get Power Tool in play, you're kind of not going to want to play anything else just so that there's fewer targets for Kalin to go after and possibly knock you out. So you're not going to be attacking with anything else anyway. Now you will notice I have Black Rose Dragon in here as well. I have that just on the off chance I'm able to somehow get 2 synchro summons in one duel. I've been in situations where I could, but if you don't have Black Rose Dragon, you certainly don't have to. And that also circles back around. If you don't have Power Tool Dragon, just grab your strongest synchro, build a deck around summoning that thing as fast as you possibly can, and yeah, maybe throw in some Fairy Meteor Crushes so they can do piercing. If it could already do piercing, because I know there are some synchros that do, maybe just give them stuff to just amp up their attack even more. There's really not so much a specific farming strategy, like specific cards that are good, so much as get a synchro summon as soon as possible, proceed to just beat the crap out of them. That's generally what these duels are supposed to do. As for the rest of the deck, again, it's designed to summon Power Tool as quickly as possible. The original recipe called for 3 of this Morphtronic Scopin. I only had 1. Scopin is very good because while it's in attack mode, you can special summon a level 4 Morphtronic from your hand. So it's a 3, you'd special summon a 4, instant synchro summon for Power Tool. And I believe the original recipe also had just a bunch of other level 4 Morphtronics, so you just play Scopin, have a high chance of having another level 4 Morphtronic, so you special summon that, go for Power Tool immediately. I've only got the 1 Scopin, so I had to build around that. My level 4 Morphtronic is Morphtronic Vidion. This is a really good one, specifically because while it's in attack mode, it gains 800 attack for each equipped card equipped to it. So if you give it something like Power of the Guardians, it just boosts its own attack points immediately, and then it gains, like with Guardians, it would gain another 500 every time it attacks or is attacked. So it's very good for just sort of like standing guard and keeping Kalin's monsters at bay until you are able to synchro summon. Don't mind the fact that I have 3 prismatics. I've just been cashing in my Karibo tickets for these things. But if you have any other level 4 Morphtronics, they can easily sub in 4 Vidions. And then for everything else, I have Genix Neutron, because during the end phase of the turn that it was normal summoned, you can add a machine type... Excuse me. During the end of the turn that it was normal summoned, you can add a machine type tuner monster from your deck to your hand. So this thing would let me search out Scopin or Quickspan Knights. I have these substitute in for the missing Scopins, because when this thing is sent to the graveyard for a synchro summon, you can make an opponent's monster lose 500 attack points. So if Kalin does have something in attack mode, and I use Quickspan Knight, I can at least weaken it and do slightly more battle damage to him than I would normally. And then otherwise, I have our Genix Accelerator for its 1900 defense points. None of Kalin's level 4s are strong enough to attack through that. He can sometimes quickly summon some of his stronger Infernities, and if he gets those out, you're probably going to lose with this deck anyway, but Accelerator is good for just keeping stuff at bay. Likewise, Genix Ally Duradark has 1800 attack points. At best, Kalin's Infernity Archfiend ties with it, but I specifically am using Duradark because once per turn during your main phase, you can select the face-up attack position monster your opponent controls with the same attribute as Duradark and destroy it. Now granted, Duradark is not allowed to attack the turn that it uses this effect, but because this thing is a dark attribute and all of Kalin's monsters are a dark attribute, this thing can be pretty good for getting rid of his stronger Infernities / the 100 Eyes Dragon if that thing happens to be out on the field and is kind of threatening what you're trying to do. But again, none of these cards are required. If you don't have them, just find your best substitutes. If you can't really pull off the strategy, again, just pick your best synchro, build a deck around summoning it as quickly as you can, and just do your best. Because there's really no sort of stalling farming strategy here. It's just, hurt it as much as you possibly can. So yeah, with that, let's go ahead and go into the event. So for instance, this current Earthbound Immortal has spawned at level 300. There's 100, 200, 300, and 400. Each difficulty level has a sort of max range for its life points. In this case, I think this one is kind of about a mid-range. I haven't gotten 300s all that often. I usually get, at this point, I usually get 400s, and they tend to be between 60 and 70,000 life points. But this one only has 47,000. I don't know if I can actually kill it in one duel, but the main thing you want to aim for is to do at least half of its life points. And the reason you want to do half is because of how the game determines how many rewards people get when the Earthbound Immortal dies. So, is it in Treasure Box? It's in here. Yes, here we go. So, specifically for, I guess it just showing up, you're guaranteed 2 treasure boxes. If you assist with someone, you get another treasure box for free. But it's this one here. If you are the player that did the most damage to that Earthbound Immortal, you get 2 treasure boxes. If you weren't, you still get 1, but that's where the whole half life points come in, is that if you do half of this thing's damage, nobody else can do more than you. Because by the time they'll get into the duel, it'll be below half life, and they can't catch up at that point. So that's generally going to be your goal, is to get it below half health. If you get it below half health, you can usually comfortably just kind of sit back and let other players finish it. If you want to go in for another swing, you absolutely can. But yeah, that's what you want to aim for. And then you just get more treasure boxes the higher the difficulty is. So at level 100 you get another 3, at 200 you get 4. This one will give me 5 bonuses, and a level 400 will give you 6. Now, as for the rewards, each treasure box has its own sort of loot list, which is actually very nice. If you get a rainbow treasure box, it is guaranteed to only give you the ultra rares or the super rare cards. In this case, it's Infernity Mirage, Infernity Knight, Beetle, Inferno, Patriarch, and then the two new ones, Altar of the Bound Deity and Earthbound Wave. Oh, and I guess Gems and EX Jewels. I kind of forgot those were there. Yeah. So, I've been talking for a while, and I've actually got a bit of a headache, so I don't want to read over all the old cards, but I will go over the two new trap cards. So, Altar of the Bound Deity is a continuous trap card. Once per turn during your standby phase, you place one Earthbound Immortal counter on this card for every face-up defense position monster on the field. You can send this card with 4 or more Earthbound Immortal counters to the graveyard to special summon one Earthbound Immortal monster from your deck. And yes, you will get a copy of Earthbound Immortal Ccapac when you unlock Kalin. I believe it is the ace card in his deck, or probably available through some sort of a skill. I know that he has it somehow. I haven't actually looked at Kalin yet, so I don't know specifically how, but we will know by the end of the video. And then, the other new card is Earthbound Wave, a counter trap card that when your opponent activates a spell trap card when you control an Earthbound Immortal, you can just negate the activation and destroy it. So, very good card, very much meant to protect your Earthbound Immortal once you special summon it. I remember those things have a very specifically, like, they have a very bad weakness despite their strengths. I don't remember what it is, but we will figure it out when we see him and read it. A gold treasure box does not give you the ultra rare Infernity Mirage. It can still give you the new super rares, and in case you haven't noticed, these are the two cards that I have not been able to get. Well, I got one Altar of the Bound Deity, but that was about it. However, the gold boxes also have a chance of giving you rares and normals, lower amounts of gems, still decent amounts of EX jewels, some gold, and then the general wood treasure boxes is garbage. It's the rares and the normals. Low amounts of EX jewels, no chance of gems, just gold and gate keys. So the fewer wooden treasure boxes you get, the better your rewards are going to be, basically. And this is something a little bit weird. So the event says that the more times that you beat the Earthbound Immortal, the better the rewards you get. I don't know how true that is. Specifically because this is going to be the 33rd one that I've ever fought against. And I've seen rainbow treasure boxes maybe twice. So I don't know at one point those things are supposed to start showing up in better numbers. I certainly haven't seen it. I don't know. But yeah. I forgot that every time you've dueled against this thing 5 times, you can do a turbo duel against it. I'm not going to be showing that off in the video just because I'd have to duel against this thing 4 times in total to get a turbo duel to show up. But otherwise, the turbo duel just behaves exactly like the regular raid duels, except you have access to a modified version of the speed spell acceleration skill. The way that skill works is you can spend 4 speed counters to play a tuner monster from your hand, 6 to draw a card, 8 to give all of your monsters 1,000 extra attack points, or 10 to double the attack power of all of your synchro monsters until the end of the turn. So 10 is going to be very good if you happen to have an opening for a big scary synchro to attack, especially if it's a Signer Dragon like Stardust or Red Dragon Archfiend, because you double it, then you triple it. So to take Red Dragon Archfiend as an example, that would do 18,000 damage to the Earthbound Immortal if it gets a direct attack off after you use that skill. But like I said, otherwise it's just a regular old raid duel, nothing special about it. You are only allowed to use 5D's characters during a turbo duel, but for regular duels you can use anybody from any of the duel worlds. In this case I'm using Bakura just because I was level grinding him when the event started and I didn't want to switch to somebody else. There are also cumulative rewards, and unlike other unlock events where it counts up your duel assessment for the reward, in this case the cumulative score is how much damage you've done to the Earthbound Immortals across all duels. So starting at 10,000 damage, you get 10 gems, 40,000 you get another 10, and so on. At 80,000 you get a copy of this really bad normal monster because it's level 5 with 1,700 attack points. At 160,000 you get an Infernity Beast, a level 3 Dark Beast with 1,600 attack, 1,200 defense, and if this card attacks while you have no cards in your hand, your opponent is not allowed to activate any spell or traps until after the damage step. And that whole no cards in your hand thing is what in the Infernity archetype kind of revolves around, is that they all have very strong effects, but only work if you have no cards in your hand. 220,000 you get some vestiges for free. At 240,000 you get Infernity Knight for free, which is one of the super rares, which is actually kind of cool. Level 3 Dark Fiend, 1400 attack, 400 defense. When this card on the field is destroyed and sent to the graveyard, you can discard 2 cards to special summon this card from the graveyard. So, okay, it doesn't actually have an effect that activates when you have no cards in your hand, but it helps you get to having no cards in your hand. At 320,000, you get these card sleeves, which look pretty cool. At 460,000, you get a copy of Mirage, a level 1 Dark Fiend, no attack and defense. Cannot be special summoned from the graveyard. And if you have no cards in your hand, you contribute this thing to select 2 Infernity monsters in your graveyard and special summon those. Doesn't matter the level, doesn't matter the attack power, just pick any 2 and special summon them. 650, you get the game mat, or 650,000 damage, you get the game mat. At 860,000, you get a new ultra rare in the form of 100 Eyes Dragon, a level 8 Dark Dragon Synchro with 3,000 attack and 2,500 defense. It requires 1 Dark Tuner and 1 or more non-tuner Fiend-type monsters, so very specific summoning requirements. And once per turn, you can banish 1 level 6 or lower Dark Effect monster from your graveyard. Until the end phase, this card's name becomes that banished monster's, and you replace this effect with that banished monster's original effects. So it basically just gains the ability of whatever monster you banished. Additionally, if this card is destroyed and sent to the graveyard, add an Earthbound Immortal monster from your deck to your hand. So this thing is basically Kalin's signature synchro monster. When you unlock Kalin and you get access to the Earthbound Immortal, you're probably going to want to use it to help you search for the thing, because I have a feeling you're probably only ever going to have access to 1 copy of it at a time. But it's also just a pretty strong synchro even without that second effect. Like, it probably would find a good home in a lot of sort of dark attribute decks, just being able to mimic other monsters' effects. Anyway, moving on, at 1.2 million damage, you get this cool icon, and that's about it, except for some gems and some ultra rares, until 1.6 million, where you get the completed tag that shows up in the PvP arena. But yeah, lots of cool stuff. There are some special items that you can purchase in the shop. Specifically, there is one that just instantly lets you turbo duel against it, instead of having to wait for 5 duels to elapse. And then another one that... Oh yeah, sorry, I forgot there was actually multiple. There's also EX Draw and Summon, where if you use it before the duel starts, so kind of like the experience booster or the results booster sort of items, you get to draw 2 cards every draw phase and normal summon twice per turn during that duel. I don't think there's any way to get this thing outside of buying it at the shop, since it is very powerful. But if you're willing to put a little bit of money in, and you're having some trouble against it at one point or another, you can use these. Makes it pretty nice. But this is one that you're going to have more often, the Earthbound Immortal Beacon. You are given one of these for free every day just by dueling any standard duelist in Duel World. And when you use it, it immediately respawns the Earthbound Immortal. So if the event is starting to wind down and you're a few duels or a couple 100,000 points short of getting the next reward or a card that you really want, you can go ahead and use these and just force it to respawn and go through a couple more raids a little bit quicker than what the game would normally do. Okay, so with that, half an hour into this video already. I do apologize for taking so long, but this is a bit of a complicated event, and it is a new event, so lots of new stuff to go over. Let's go ahead and have a duel against this thing. So, this deck does work pretty well. There have been a few times where it's bricked on me, but overall it's pretty decent. Hopefully it maintains. And kind of like the sort of like mini raid boss of Ultimate Tyranno Hassleberry in his unlock event, Earthbound Immortal Ccapac, who is looming in the background constantly, and it will react whenever you damage it. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and play a Genix Neutron. The duels will always start with you going first, so be prepared for that. But I'm going to go ahead and use Neutron to search out Scopin. Since I have 2 Videons in my hand, I'm guaranteed to get Power Tool Dragon next turn. Hopefully I draw one of my equip spells so that I can put 2 things onto it. Ooh, this is rough. Whenever he gets 2 Infernity launchers out on the same turn, or like right at the beginning of the duel, it's kind of a rough time. Thankfully it looks like he only had weak Infernities to use with it. Anyway, before I continue though, this is something that is actually... This is one of my biggest gripes with the event, is the fact that you always go first, but that very first turn still counts as one of your 5 turns of the duel. So effectively you only have 4 turns to attack before the duel ends. And that... It feels like a very... like, there's times where I am able to do a lot of damage in those 4 turns, but at the same time, it still feels a little cheap to say you get 5 turns, but during one of those turns you're not allowed to attack. It just seems a little bit weird when the whole point is to do as much damage as you possibly can. So I don't know if they're going to change that the next time they have it in an Earthbound Immortal raid. They might not. It feels a bit weird. But anyway, I'm going to go ahead and play Scopin, use its effect to special summon a Videon. Excuse me. I'm going to Synchro Summon for Power Tool. I'm going to combine it with the Videon so I get to keep the 1800 Neutron in the field instead of the 1000 Videon. Create Power Tool, going to go ahead and use its effect, and I'm going to select 2 of my Fairy Meteor Crushes and 1 of my Air Cracking Storms. And ideally I'll get the Fairy Meteor Crush. I got the Air Cracking Storm instead, so in that case, is it worth... I'll put the Cracking Storm on Power Tool, just as some added protection for it, because if Power Tool would be destroyed, you can send one of its spells to the graveyard instead. So if Kalin does try to blow it up with something, I'll just get rid of Air Cracking Storm. But I'm not going to use its effects. There's really no point in doing so, because either way I'm not going to get to do any battle damage. I was hoping for a Fairy Meteor Crush so I could attack the Infernity Beetle and get, you know, a 2800 direct attack through. And he's going to special summon his Infernity General, which is a level 7 with 2700 attack points. But because of Power Tool, it's scared into staying in defense mode. Let's go ahead and use Power Tool's effect again. Please give me a Fairy Meteor Crush. I would really like to start doing some damage to you. Yes, okay. So at this point, I'm actually just going to go ahead and put Neutron into defense mode just in case the AI ever decides to get wily and try to attack it. But from this point, Power Tool is going to be doing all the attacking. Ooh, and that actually means that Power of the Guardians is going to activate twice every turn as well, so... yeah, I like the idea of giving this thing Air Cracking Storm. Look at that, I already did, like, in one turn I did almost 10,000 damage to this guy. Ooh, I like this. I could activate Power Tool, search for more equip spells. Not really much of a point to. Just gonna go ahead and just keep attacking with it. Oh, 0 defense point monster, that was bad for you. And that is the weird thing, is that even when you give something like Power Tool, Fairy Meteor Crush, Kalin's AI will still put stuff in defense mode. So it's almost like it doesn't understand that you do piercing battle damage, which is fine because, again, a lot of his monsters have no defense points. So, actually I managed to kill it. Cool. Wow, I think that's the first time I've ever managed to kill a level 300 Earthbound Immortal in one go. So, yeah, that Air Cracking Storm with Power Tool Dragon, that is a very strong combo. Wow. Okay. Alright. I thought for sure he would live with a few thousand and I just have to leave it around for somebody else to finish off. Ignore this, a duelathon started today. It's just one of those, you just gain points for dueling and you get rewards just by playing the game. Not related to the event at all. Yeah, when you kill the Earthbound Immortal, the raid finishes. I actually had somebody help, which I thought for sure you had to finish a duel before anybody could show up to help. Maybe you just have to start the duel and then somebody can come and help? I don't know. Anyway, so I got first place in damage, so I get two chests. It spawns, so I get 2. Maybe that's if you kill it on the first, like, immediately after it spawns. That might be what that is. I'm not sure. And then I get another 5 because it was a level 300. Are any of them rainbow? One of them is, and I got 10 gems. Can't exactly say I'm upset about that, but I would really have preferred one of the super rare trap cards, please. Okay. Since that went by so fast, let's go ahead and do an assist duel. Might as well. Assist duels, I think I mentioned this, but assist duels only cost 20 of the vestiges instead of a rematch with yours, which cost 40. And you get 1 free assist duel every day, so it's always worth doing. It counts as 1 more battle. All the damage you do stays on the Immortal's sort of damage score, so you will just get rewards for every assist duel you do, even if you don't do that much. In this case, this one has 55,400 life points left, so it looks like this is a level 400 one. But I see that I have a video on, so I'm just going to go ahead and summon Neutron. Use its effect to search out Scopin, so I'm guaranteed a Power Tool Dragon next turn. 1800 attack. Not much Kalin can do to attack past it, and thankfully he doesn't do any Infernity Launcher nonsense. Because there has been times where he's used like 2 Infernity Launchers, emptied his entire hand, and then summoned the 2700 attack Infernity General and the 2300 attack Infernity Destroyer on like his first possible turn and just ruined me. So, you know, that kind of sucks. But anyway, let's go ahead and synchro for Power Tool Dragon. And I'm trying to think what I would want. Let's see, an Air Cracking Storm would let it attack twice. But Power of the Guardians would start giving it more power. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to search for I'm going to excavate 2 of the Air Cracking Storms and 1 of the Power of the Guardians and see what it gives me. Ideally I want 1 of each. I get Power of the Guardians. Okay. That's fine. This basically makes Power Tool Dragon invincible. And what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to let Neutron crash into this thing. Get it off my field so he can't do any nonsense with Destroyer or General or anything and start hurting me. And this lets Power Tool attack directly with 2800, which doubles to 5600, instead of however much less it would do by attacking Infernity, the Infernity Archfiend. Alright. Here's the only annoying thing, is that I'm not drawing any of my equipped spells, so I'm finding them a lot slower. But since he's now putting stuff in defense mode, I'm going to search for the Fairy Meteor Crushes. I get one, so I can at least continue to hurt him. Go ahead and give that to Power Tool. I'm sure that somebody else out there has a better skill for this deck. Probably one of Leo's skills would be good. Oh cool, I drew an Air Cracking Storm, so I don't even have to play the RNG game anymore. Alright, well, let's go ahead and give that to Power Tool, start attacking again. 4400 through Piercing, Air Cracking Storm activates, get to attack again. 8600. This is so much better than Mage Power. Like, I changed to Mage Power because it technically gives more attack points than Double Tool does. But Air Cracking Storm is like a normal rarity spell card, but it lets Power Tool attack twice. And that just combos so well with the Fairy Meteor Crush, the doubling battle damage, and Power of the Guardians. It's like if you go for Power Tool, put this thing in your deck, because this is just great. And there, as you see, because I wasn't able to kill it by the end of the 5th turn, his Flames of Vengeance spell goes off, and the duel is forcefully ended. Get to see this cool animation of Ccapac attacking. but whoever's Earthbound Immortal this is just lost like 40,000 life points. 39,800, close enough. More points for the Duelathon. And we can actually see down below, this is the other player whose Earthbound Immortal that was. It was indeed a level 400. It has 15,000 life points left. You can check and see who else it was helping. Looks like this player might have had a hard time or just bad luck. Sometimes that's happened to me. There's been a couple duels where I haven't even hurt the thing before the duel ends. It's rough sometimes. But yeah, that's basically everything regarding the raid duels and how they work and what your plan should be and all of that. So cool. You can see it's changed to the symbol of the giant in the sky. That will be replaced with Ccapac whenever he decides to respawn. Looks like... oh, it counts as a legendary duelist too, so that's cool. And alright, so because that's everything in the event, I think we can go ahead and come over here and check out Kalin. So, let's see what you have for your reward cards, shall we? 40 minutes into this thing, and I have to get up again in like 6 hours time, so glad I'm finally able to start winding down this video. Let's see. Okay, so you do get a copy of the Earthbound Immortal just in your deck. It is not linked to a skill. Most of these normals, that thing's garbage. That thing's not that great. That thing's not that great. Yeah, most of these are kind of really bad tier dark monsters. You do get a field spell Yami, which is pretty cool. It increases the attack and defense of all fiend and spellcasters by 200, and decreases the attack and defense of all fairies by 200. And you get a couple of Raimes, which are just a spell that deals 300 damage to your opponent. But the Yami is important because of how the Earthbound Immortals work. So Earthbound Immortal Ccapac is a level 10 Dark Fiend with 3,000 attack and 2,500 defense. There can only ever be one Earthbound Immortal monster on the field. If there is no face-up field spell on the field, destroy this card. That is the weakness that all Earthbound Immortals share, and is why that Earthbound Wave counter trap is going to be so important to try and get your hands on, and why I'm kind of furious that I haven't gotten any yet, is that you can use that trap to protect your opponent from doing anything that would destroy your field spell and thus kill your Earthbound Immortal alongside it. Additionally, in case that wasn't enough, your opponent is not allowed to target Earthbound Immortal Ccapac with attacks. It is allowed to attack your opponent directly, and if this thing destroys an opponent's monster in battle, inflict damage to your opponent equal to that destroyed monster's original attack power. So these things are insanely strong. I mean, seriously, that is a 3,000 attack point monster that can attack directly, and your opponent is not allowed to attack it just at all. So yeah, the only things that these things have to fear are any sort of card effects or banishing effects. Monsters can still use their effects on this thing, just not attack it. And likewise, because it is relatively easy to destroy a spell or trap card, you're going to want to pack some protection for your field spell, just because if that thing goes, this thing goes with it. Just full stop. It cannot exist if there is no face-up field spell. So that's kind of rough, but that's something you have to plan around, and that is, you know, a fair compensation and weakness for such powerful effects otherwise. But yeah. So that's how the Earthbound Immortal works. Let's go ahead and take a look at Kalin's level up rewards and then his skills. So at level 3 we get a Memory Crusher, which I think this is also a Yubel level up reward, but anyway. This is a level 3 Dark Fiend, 1000 attack, 600 defense. If this card successfully attacks directly, inflict 100 damage to your opponent for each card in their extra deck. Kind of an okay skill. Level 4 you get Dark Tuning 100, which, let's go ahead and take a look at that. So at the beginning of the duel, add 2 Infernity Avengers to your deck and then 100 Eyes Dragon to your extra deck. Okay, so that's basically his equivalent to a Mark of the Dragon skill. So we've already seen 100 Eyes Dragon. Infernity Avenger is a level 1 Dark Fiend tuner, no attack and defense. When a monster you control, except Infernity Avenger, is destroyed by battle with an opponent's monster and sent to the graveyard, while you have no cards in your hand, you can special summon this card from your graveyard, and in that case, the level of this card becomes equal to the level of your destroyed monster. So if your opponent destroyed a level 4, and you special summon this thing, it becomes a level 4. So that's kind of how you adjust its level for synchro summoning. Can work pretty well with other Infernities if you play your cards right. And it is a Dark Tuner, so it does satisfy the tuner requirements for 100 Eyes Dragon. It'd be pretty silly if they gave you a non-Dark Tuner with that skill, but anyway. Level 7, there is Infernity Dwarf, a level 2 Dark Warrior with 800 attack and 500 defense. While you have no cards in your hand, during battle between an attacking monster you control and a defense position monster whose defense... okay, basically if you have no cards in your hand, this thing does piercing. So, not bad. Kind of low attack to work with a piercing effect, but there's probably other stuff you can do along with it. Level 10, there's another Memory Crusher. Level 11, there is Earthbound Revival. Discard a card, then target 1 Earthbound Immortal monster and a field spell card in your graveyard. Add those targets to your hand. Alright, that's pretty cool. Nice recovery in case your opponent does manage to take out your field spell and your Immortal along with it. At 13, there is Seal of the Immortal, which, until the end of your opponent's next turn, Earthbound Immortal monsters cannot be destroyed by their own effect. This skill can only be used once per duel. Okay. So, that's kind of like a last-ditch effort to keep your Earthbound Immortal alive. In case your opponent tries to do anything to take out your field spell. Doesn't really protect it from any of your opponent's card effects, but, you know, can't be perfect. Level 14, you get another Infernity Dwarf. At 16, you get an Infernity Avenger for free, so you can use it in other characters' decks. Level 18 is a Memory Crusher. Level 20 is Wave Motion Inferno. Wave Motion Inferno. That, if you have no cards in your hand, this skill increases the attack and defense of all Infernity monsters you control by 400. Alright, that's actually a pretty cool skill. It doesn't really help out Dwarf that much, but there are other Infernities with pretty high attack power already. Level 21, you get another Earthbound Revival. 23, you get another Dwarf. 25, you get Infernity Guardian, a level 4 Dark Fiend with 1200 attack and 1700 defense. While you have no cards in your hand, this face-up card cannot be destroyed by battle or by card effects, so it's basically invincible while your hand is empty. Very cool card. Very cool card. Continuing on, at 30 you get another Earthbound Revival. At 33 we get Infernity Break. Alright, this is actually a pretty strong card. So if you have no cards in your hand, you target 1 Infernity card in your graveyard and 1 card your opponent controls. Banish the first target, i.e. your Infernity, and if you do, destroy the second target. Very powerful trap. And finally at 35, you get Infernity Necromancer. Level 3 Dark Fiend, 0 attack, 2000 defense. When this card is normal summoned, it is changed to defense position. If you have no cards in your hand, this card gains the following effect. Once per turn, you can select 1 Infernity monster in your graveyard except for the Necromancer and special summon it. Very powerful monster, very good in other Infernity decks. Lots of really good cards as his level rewards, honestly. And looking at this, we can also get Restart just as a random drop. He gets Power of Dark, which starts with a copy of Yami in play. Life Point Boost Gamma, which reduces your starting hand by 2 and gives you 2500 life points, or 2500 extra life points. This might still be a bit of a rough skill to use, but if you use it with an Infernity deck, that would just make it easier to empty your hand and all of your effects to activate. So it might actually be worthwhile for him. There's also level reduction, where you reveal a monster in your hand, select a monster on your side of the field, Selected monster's level is reduced by the level of the monster you revealed down to a minimum of 1, so tuning alteration. And what else is this? Handless combo 100. Begin the duel with no cards in your hand, but a 100-eyes dragon on your side of the field. Alright, so just start with a 3000 attack point monster. Okay, bit of a disadvantage because you don't have anything in your hand that you can use, but you start with a pretty tough-ass card. Alright, Draw Sense Dark, which whenever you take, it's been decreased to 1500 damage now. Whenever you take 1500 life points in damage, you can draw a random Dark attribute monster instead of your normal draw. Dark Tuning 100, we already looked at this. Immortal Offerings. Reveal 1 to 3 Earthbound Immortal monsters in your hand, then play an equal number of ceremonial token in defense position. You cannot normal or special summon any monsters except Earthbound Immortal monsters on the turn you use this skill. The skill can only be used once per duel. Okay, so this is going to become a little bit more powerful later once the next Earthbound Immortal raid happens. Possibly whether they decide to release more copies of Ccapac to the players, or just the next the next Dark Signer shows up with the next Earthbound Immortal. But getting a ceremonial token is pretty cool, especially if you already have something defensive on your field that's been sitting there just kind of turtling for you. You just kind of get a free extra, like one of the 2 tributes you need for your Immortal. Then there's Immortal Charity. Can be used if you control an Earthbound Immortal monster. Set 1 Earthbound Whirlwind, Earthbound Wave, or Roar of the Earthbound from outside of your deck. Okay, well we know what Earthbound Wave is, it's that counter trap. Earthbound Whirlwind is a regular spell. If you control an Earthbound Immortal monster, you destroy all spell and trap cards your opponent controls. That's pretty strong. And then Roar of the Earthbound is a continuous trap. Once per turn, when an opponent's monster declares an attack, target the attacking monster, destroy that target, and if you do, inflict damage to your opponent equal to half the destroyed monster's attack. You must control an Earthbound Immortal monster with attack higher than the attack of the attacking monster to activate and resolve this effect. So basically, while you have an Immortal in play, this thing effectively just keeps your opponent from attacking ever. I mean, they could just eat the hit and then attack with something else, but you pick when you activate this thing's effect, so not that big of a deal. That's a really powerful skill. No wonder that's a random drop. Then there's 1 card Wonder. Your starting hand will contain only 1 card. However, during the duel, your normal draws in the draw phase are 2 cards instead of 1. That's kind of cool. Then we have Infernity Inferno, which is the last random drop skill. Can be used on your second turn. Discard up to 2 cards from your hand, then send an equal number of Infernity monsters from your deck to the graveyard. Okay, I think that's actually one of the Infernity cards in the game, is Infernity Inferno, and it has that same effect, so that's basically that card in skill form. But yeah, lots of really strong card skills, lots of pretty good level cards, plus an Earthbound Immortal, so if you can, definitely unlock Kalin as soon as you, if nothing else, get Kalin before this duel ends, because this is a very worthwhile character. Oh, and that actually reminds me. To unlock Kalin, all you have to do is get your total damage over 320,000. Which, pretty easy to do. Probably do it in a couple of raids, to be honest. I mean, let's say you average 40,000 damage a duel, which if you have a good synchro and you manage to get some good direct attacks in, it's pretty easy to do. It's, what, 8 raids? It's not bad. Especially because you get, you get a free duel whenever the Earthbound Immortal shows up. You get a free resummon of the Earthbound Immortal every day just by dueling standard duelists. It's definitely doable in the time that's left to unlock Kalin. If you haven't been participating in the event yet, definitely do so now. Definitely get Kalin if you can. I'd honestly say, actually, if you can get to the 860,000 to get a free copy of 100 Eyes Dragon to use with anybody, you're probably set at that point. Like, I definitely say Kalin and this thing are going to be the most important things to get out of the duel, or this event. Definitely, the more copies of Earthbound Wave you can make out with, the better. But that comes into the drop rates, and they've not been very kind to me. But yeah, that's pretty much everything for this event, I believe. So thank you all for bearing with me through a 55-minute video. Lots of stuff to cover with the new event, but lots of cool stuff anyway. So with that, thank you all so much for watching. I hope you all had a great time, and I hope you all have a great day. And I will see you all in the next one.